Hello, everybody. Welcome for today's course series in Introduction to Engineering Design. First, let's start introducing myself. My name is Nicolas Francisco Soria Zurita, but please call me Nico Soria for short. Currently, I'm a postdoctoral scholar in the Engineering Design program at Penn State University. I completed my PhD and Master's in Science in Mechanical Engineering at Oregon State University, and I completed my Bachelor in Science in Mechanical Engineering in Universidad San Francisco de Quito in Ecuador. Today's lecture is titled Discovering and Leveraging User-Product Interactions in Engineering Design. And after today's lecture, you will be able to understand what is the importance of user considerations during the engineering design process. You will be able to distinguish what are the limitations of traditional engineering design approaches. You will be able to recognize what are the benefits and limitations of human factors engineering approaches. And most important, you will learn tools to how to identify user systems interaction and how to interpret and construct action function diagrams. So let's begin. Cell phones are a really good example of how in a short period of time, the way on how as users interact with a device has changed drastically. Of course, there's a lot of transformation in terms of the form and the function of the devices, but think about how different is the way that we as users interact. Before, we used to have like this keypad where we use our fingers to press the numbers and make phone calls, while now we have a device that is basically an entire screen, and we are using our voice commands or even now our faces to interact and complete the different functions. And this is something that is happening across multiple domains. Another example is the dashboard of vehicles. Again, in a short period of time, the traditional dashboard, at least the ones that I am used to or where I learned how to drive, is gone. Before we used to have this dashboard, well, you have different knobs to control the radio, the AC of the vehicle, but now new vehicles are now following the same pattern. We will have touchscreens and providing more information about the vehicle performance. Here you can see the dashboard of the Tesla Model 3S. And as you can see, it's completely different from what's the normal convention, right? Now you have one large screen on the middle of the vehicle that will show you different information about the performance of the car, what's happening outside. So you have all these different sensors, GPS, music, stereo, all these different features that are connected and presented here. So many can argue that this is great because we have more information about the vehicle and what's happening. But maybe we can also argue that the way on how the user is going to interact with this device can be a little bit different. Maybe we'll pay more attention to this particular task and taking less attention to the actual task of driving. So this creates this question, right? How are actually engineers considering these product human interactions during the design process? So to answer this question, first we need to take a look into the traditional design process, right? So in the traditional design process, engineers, they start first to understand what is the need, what is the problem they're trying to solve, and then they will try to start what is called the preliminary design, where different ideas are conceived, and we try to find what are the pros and the cons of different ideas. After we pick one idea, we start jumping into what is called the detail design, when we actually pay attention to all the little things to make the solution. It could be from aesthetics to actually different tech connections and so on. Finally, when the solution, the design is ready, it jumps into the production, and then finally is ready to be used by the final user, okay? And inside all this process and this flowchart, there is an entire field that is called human factors engineering. And their main purpose is to try to incorporate all the user needs from safety, comfort, and even aesthetics to try to combine it inside of this flowchart. And why? Because we are building systems that needs to accommodate the user, right? So how these human factors people perform all these different analysis, they have different methods. Here I'm just presenting a few of them, such as user interviews, task analysis, ergonomic analysis. And I want to show you some examples. So for example, in ergonomic analysis, it's literally engineers will create replicas of human purpose or even human bodies to try to take measurements of what are the different distance to actually suit the human and different type of humans, different shapes, different bodies, different dimensions into one system. Then all this information is compiled into large set of databases. So it's really important to collect as much information as possible because then we can actually accommodate from the smallest human to actually the largest humans, and we can actually create that sense of comfort and safety. And finally, then using this information, this data, they can actually do different usability tests using different prototypes to try to mimic and try to incorporate how the human is going to fit into these systems. During the engineering design process, both engineers and human factors specialists will try to combine their efforts to actually incorporate the user as best as possible. So here in the figures that I'm showing, first I will going to present how people, engineers, we have to develop sometimes detailed CAD models where we put every single component of the vehicle. And sometimes we also need to build replicas of the vehicle, like physical replicas, so we can actually see different parameters and aesthetics. And now with new features of technology, we can actually incorporate humans both digitally to try to actually replicate and change different parameters so we can actually fit people from different dimensions. But we can actually now include VR settings where we can actually try to simulate how the user is going to behave and see and performs inside these type of vehicles. So this is all really cool stuff that's happening now in industry. So ideally, human factors engineers will be involved during the entire design process. However, as you saw in the previous example, what's actually happening is that human factors are being applied after one design is selected. So we are being using it just in the detail design and right after the production sections. And this is a problem because first, it's really expensive to build these prototypes, and that requires a lot of time, money that not necessarily we want to save for the company, but also because designers cannot necessarily identify or analyze these user interactions until they have a physical prototype. And also, designers are not necessarily trained in this human factors engineering field. So try to ask them to do this type of analysis is really complicated. And as I said before, now we actually need to build these prototypes or physical and virtual prototypes to try to assess these user systems interactions. And what happens if you don't do this correctly? Well, there's going to be failure modes. There's going to be some errors in the design that we will not be able to see until the system is out there in production, and we want to avoid that. So what I did as part of my research, and I want you to learn today as well, is that we can actually expand this approach. We want to actually expand this human factors engineering to actually jump into the preliminary design. And why here? Why is it important? Because during this stage, we are actually clarifying the problem. We are developing and creating those engineering requirements. And we are not constrained to any concept. We are not constrained to a shape or to a form in that device. And if we're able to incorporate human factors principles here, that could be really beneficial. And what type of human factors we can do and introduce here if we don't have a physical prototype? Well, we can actually try to understand what are the user tasks, what are the things that the user needs to do. And with that, we can try to already identify what will be some of those user systems interactions. And we can generate an action function diagram. And this is the main piece that I want you to take away from today's lecture. The action function diagram is a map that allows us to build the relationships between the user and the product. To build these relationships, we need two components. First, understanding what are all the tasks that the user needs to perform in order to operate the device. And those are grouped into what is called the activity diagram. The second component is a functional model, which is a functional representation of all the different flows and key functions that the product or system needs to perform. So by combining these two, we can have this map. Now, because of the sake of time, we will be just focusing on the activity diagram. And something important that I want you to take away from this is that we are going to be using a standard vocabulary to describe this list of actions. And this vocabulary was established by the World Health Organization and is called the ICF lexicon. So basically, we have a tool that is already defined to describe all these users. And now we are going to use it to map and build a sequence of all these different actions while operating a system. So to do that, we are going to build now an example of a can opener. So first, let's start with the activity diagram. If we think about what are the main tasks that we need to perform in order to operate a can opener, first, we will need to use our hand to pick up the can opener, right? So we will need our hand to reach out to the device, picking it up and using the handles to grasp it, right? Pretty simple. And then with our other hand, we are going to actually use to reach out to the can, the closed can, and picking it up and carrying it and bring it together close to the can opener. And then we will need to connect these two elements. So we will do some manipulation so we can actually connect the can with the can opener. And then after doing some grasping, some pushing or turning of the tool, we will be able to open the lid and then we will be able to pull it out and we have a can that is open, right? This is simple. Again, it was try to think of what are the main tasks that we're doing and use the right vocabulary to describe it. So the next part is the functional model. The functional model is again a map of the main product, in this case, the can opener. So how this map works is try to understand the flows. So how the flows are going to insert into the system and how the system is going to change those with different functions in order to complete the functionality that we want. So for example, we will have to bring the user, so we will need to import that hand in this case. We will need to position us somehow, and then we need to make that position to transfer that human energy to the device. For the other hand, we will have again the solid, in this case, the can that needs to be incorporated to the system, coupled, guided. And we will need to make a connection on how to convert that human energy into this mechanical energy that is going to open and separate the lid, right? In another lecture, again, with more time, I'm going to go in deeper in detail on how these functional models works and how we can actually build them. But for now, let's continue. So the next step is to actually build the action function diagram. And we are going to use the functional model as our base, as our blueprints for this device. So now we are going to map these user tasks and we are going to draw those around these different functions and try to identify where we have a match. So if you remember from our previous activity diagram, first we have the task of using our hand to reach to the device. We will need to pick it up from the handle and we will need to reach out to the can. We will pick it up and then we will kind of use some manipulation to connect this can with the can opener. And finally, we will going to do some human effort. We will do some grasping, some pushing, some turning to transfer that human input and transform it into mechanical energy. So then we can, at the end, finally separate ourselves from the device, and after some manipulation, we have the lid open and we have a can that is open and ready to use. So now that we have the action function diagram, we could actually try to think of what is the main objective. So let's say that we want to build something that is concerned or focused into safety, then maybe the idea of releasing and manipulating that open lid can be a hazard, something that can be a problem. Or what if we are actually building a device that is human centered into elderly people? Maybe then we need to start thinking of ways of how to transform that mechanical energy. Those actions of turning and pushing maybe are difficult for people with disabilities or with elderly people again. So this mapping can actually allow us to change our design concepts and provide new ideas. So where we can actually use maybe electrical power to make that operation of open the lid, or creating a larger handle so we can actually generate more torque. So there are all these different tools and mechanisms that we can now use to incorporate the user in a better way. So that's basically the end of the lecture. So now I want to kind of summarize the takeaways from today. So first is that human engineering factors can actually be incorporated during the early design stages, and there's a good benefit of this because we don't rely on building prototypes, which is a good thing. Second, that using this approach, people without any experienced human factors can actually identify user systems interactions. And therefore, we can identify possible design failures or problems in the device because of such interactions. And most important is that we will be using a standard vocabulary to describe these user interactions. Next, we will perform an activity. It will be your time to build action function diagrams of different products. And it will be a good exercise to try to identify different ways that we can improve the design of such products. Thank you for your time and talk to you soon.